Right, welcome everyone. This is now session 8. So today we're going to start the session by creating a legend that will accompany the floor plan on the floor plan sheet. So that's a little legend that will explain some of the symbols that are used on the floor plan itself. And you can see that in part 2 in the floor plan example sheet. So it's this thing here we're going to have a look at first, legend. Now, once we finish the legend, we're then going to turn our attention to the demolition plan and finish that one off. And then once that's done, we'll then start having a look at the site plan. So I'm not entirely sure how much we'll get through today, but we may just perhaps start talking about or touch on the site plan towards the end. Okay, so by now, all students should have completed the floor plan. So it should have all of the fixtures and fittings. It should have the wet area floors. It should have the rooms and room tags. It should have general tagging for doors, windows and walls. It should have section lines. It should have dimensions. It should have text and a north symbol. Okay. I don't think we did the north symbol. I think that's something we can pop in pretty quickly now. But essentially, what you're seeing on screen at the moment is the completed floor plan sheet. Now we won't actually put the sheet together until much later in the unit when we're doing all our sheets. So what we're doing at the moment is sort of going through systematically and just creating and finishing all of the required views for the project itself. So just before we leave the floor plan, what I'll get you to do is, can you zoom out so you can see the elevation markers? And what I'd like you to do now is turn on the crop region and bring the crop region in around the floor plan. Okay? And when you've done that, from the Annotate tab, over here on the symbol panel, you can then click Symbol, and the north arrow should come out automatically, and that can be placed about there. Okay, so if you can just do those couple of things and then we'll move on. So the crop region should be about there. It's not really critical, but for exact positioning, but close to the model itself. Just be careful that you don't pull it in too close and actually clip or turn things off with it, because again, it is a crop. It will crop. And turn things off if it touches something that is model based, as in 3D geometry.
So the legend will not crop region?
No. The legend is actually going to be created in an entirely new view. Yeah. So don't worry about. Don't leave this out. Just bring that in for the moment, because we don't have to include the crop region, the legend in this view. So bring it in, and what it will do, of course, it will actually then turn off the elevation markers. So providing that you actually tick crop view as well, and this is the crop region, that's what it's showing. When you've brought it in, just turn off the crop region, just make it invisible. Add your north symbol, and that floor plan is now ready potentially to go onto a sheet. Now, the legend we're going to create in an entirely new view, new area. If you go back to learn, you'll see that in part 2, there's a, here under general legend, there's a PDF which is a guide for the creation of the general legend. So this will give you some guidance on how to create it. And in fact, what I'm going to do, once I get you set up, I'm going to get you to draw the line work in and put the text in, and then I'll show you how to add the symbols afterwards. The dimensions are not required. They're only to show you or give you some indication of how big this thing is to enable you to draw it. So just have that open on your second monitor. Now, over in the project browser, if you have a look down, you'll actually see under, just below the sections area, there's a branch called Legends. You see that? So there's a couple of ways of creating a new legend. You can actually right mouse click on Legends and click New Legend. Or you can do it from the View tab, Create Panel, Legends and Legend. So whichever way you do it, this is the new legend setup. We're not going to change the scale, we're going to leave it at 1:50, but we are going to call it General Legend. Okay, and then click OK. Now, what we're about to create, of course, is a little legend that explains the symbols that are used, some of the symbols used in the floor plan. I guess if you are, other reasons for developing a legend would be if you're creating an electrical floor plan and you wanted to have a legend there that had all the electrical symbols and that are used in the electrical plan, and a description next to each one to explain what it is. So legends can be used for many reasons. They can also be used just to put in general notes, so blocks of notes, instructions perhaps, or some sort of specification, or some notes to builder, for instance, and they can be included on a floor plan, for instance, or any view basically that you want to create. So, in fact, we are going to create a few more legends throughout this project for that, with that very reason, just basically to add general notes. and trying to think if we're going to use one on this. No, yeah, we're going to put a legend on the cover sheet for some notes. We're going to use another legend on the schedules page for some notes. And that's about, and this one, this symbols legend. So, as you can see, we're in a completely blank space. And the idea is that we're going to draw up this general legend, starting with the line work, of course. In this space, it doesn't matter where you start, and you're going to go to the Annotate tab, and you're going to draw the legend starting with detail lines. So what I'll get you to do, if you can start drawing up the line work, just take note of the instructions on that sheet that you opened before, and I'll get you just to add in the text at this stage, but don't worry about the symbols. So note the size of it. 1950 by 4050, and we've got a line running through here, which is 350 from this one here. So the text that you're going to add, of course, is the text that you created in our last session, that being the standard text types, so standard 2.5 and standard 3mm. That way you'll be actually using a text type that uses the ISO CP EUR font. Alright, so I'll just give you a few moments to just to work through that. Right, so the text is in. Now, if you change your thick lines or thin line setting, you should be able to see the thickened outline of the line work you've drawn. Can I also get you to change the detail level of this view to medium, please? Now, the symbols themselves symbols themselves we can actually bring in through the symbol button here. So potentially any symbol that you have pre-installed can be brought in and added to the legend. So typically the first thing that comes out is the smoke detector or smoke alarm symbol. If it doesn't, you just need to go over to the type selector here and choose it from the type list. So you can see that the list is quite comprehensive. So there's quite a few things that can be used in the symbols legend or general legend. Don't forget, if you're looking for something specific, just type it in the search box here. So we'll just place the smoke alarm symbol here. And you can then just go and look for the door and window tags. So if you go back to the type selector, type in the word door, door tag Oz, so choose that one, and then back to the type selector and do a search for window. So just add in those first three initially. Again, if you want to adjust the spacing of text or tag, remember you can just select them and just use your arrow keys to move them around. Keep arrow keys on your keyboard. So is everybody okay with that? Everyone got those first three in? Now the walls that you can see, so these sample walls, we can also bring them in automatically at a predetermined height. So one which will represent the existing brick veneer, this one here, and this one here that represents our new wall. Now, we bring those in slightly differently, and for that we actually have to do it directly from the project browser. And what we do is we go down to families and then down to walls. Okay, so families and walls, basic wall. So have a look, just go down and find the brick veneer 240, this one here. And if you simply left click, hold and drag, see how the wall, a little sample of the wall comes out? Now on the options bar, you'll see that having done that, we've got the family there, we've got the view type, floor plan or section. So floor plan, we'll keep it horizontal, section, we'll switch it to vertical. section. We can adjust the host length if required. We'll leave it at 914 or 915, and then it's just a matter of actually just placing it over here. Hit escape, and do exactly the same thing with the new wall type, which is this one here, the custom organ installation. So click and drag that one out, section view, and then place it underneath. For the moment, I'll just turn off my thick lines. Okay, and once you've got your two walls in place there, go back to the symbol panel. And we're now looking for, specifically looking for the wall tag. Now, the instruction here, note the instruction, so we're actually going to put one of these wall tags on. So start by adding an 8mm wall tag to the first wall type, okay? So you just need one. Don't worry about this one for the moment. Okay, so just place that one there initially. Now the only issue with the wall tag is that it doesn't actually say or read W1 or W2. It's just a generic tag. So the idea is that we're going to trace the outline of the tag with thin detail lines. So we're going to trace around the outside. We're going to delete the tag underneath. We're going to add text that will read W1 at 2.5mm. And we're going to copy what we've created, which is the line work and the text. We're going to copy that to wall type 2 and update the text to read W2 down here. So detail line, thin lines. So there's no real way of actually picking lines or snapping to corners. So just do it the best you can. Okay, so just draw in those lines. And when you've done that, just click on the tag itself and delete it. So you just have the line work left. Then, just using the text tool with standard 2.5, type in the W1. And when you've done that, just very carefully select both the lines and the text, use the copy tool. Just pick a point inside the tag, or perhaps just over here, and copy the tag down here. Okay, with the new tag down here, just double click on the text and change the 1 to a 2. Okay, so that's the general legend for the floor plan now finished. So I'll get you to save your files. Just do a quick save. Put that one back. So if you have a look over here in the browser, you can see underneath legends, you've now got your new legend there called General Legend. So essentially it is considered a view and can be added to a sheet as with any other view. Alright, so we're going to have a look now at the demolition plan. So just open up that view. Going back to learn, just pop back to learn to part 2. So in the next area here, we are looking at developing and annotating the demolition plan. Now again, there is some supplemental information here to assist with things like line work and other aspects. So we'll have a look at that shortly. The completed floor plan or completed demolition plan is going to look like this. So this is from the example sheets. So ultimately that's what it will look like with the notes on the left hand side. Note in here, north symbol, complete with some additional line work. So not a lot of work to do here. Once that's done, we can then start having a look at the site plan. So, and initially, just before we have a look at that supplemental information, we just need to do a few things here. You'll need to hide your section lines. So if you can do that to begin with. The view scale itself is 1 to 100, so that doesn't change. Your detail level needs to be set to medium. Does anyone remember the shortcut for hiding by category?
BG.
Close?
BC.
You would think so, wouldn't you? VH.
BH.
VH. Alright, hide your section lines. Now, the other thing that you may notice is that as you mouse over the areas within the floor plan and next to it, you'll get these rooms pre-selecting. So what I'll get you to do is actually just get one to pre-select and actually click to select it. So it looks like that. And I'll also get you to hide the rooms by category as well. Okay, hiding rooms by category. So VH. Okay, so they're no longer visible and won't flicker as we're working. Now, if you come back to this supplemental sheet, this one here, just having a look at the top section here. So it says, for the laundry items and the meter box, change the phase created to existing. So can you do that? Or I should rephrase and say I would like you to do that. And the question is, where would you do it? And how? So change the face created of these items to existing. And I guess the question is, why are we doing it? Because are these items currently visible in this view? No. Okay. So where are they? Where can we see them? Where can we get to them?
In the new construction?
Well, they are showing up in the in the completed floor plan, aren't they?
Yeah.
We can see them here.
Complete.
Okay. Now, what phase were they created in? So when we added them to the project, what phase were they allocated? New construction. Okay. So we're wanting to change them to existing. And by changing the phase created to existing, they will then appear in the demolition plan. Because in the demolition plan, we are showing existing construction and items to be demolished. Because essentially they are part of the existing building. So if we select or click on one of them, we can change the face created over here from new construction to existing. It has no effect on the item here in this completed floor plan, but it does show the item here in the demolition plan. See how it's now visible? So that's all that instruction is wanting you to do. Okay? So you systematically select each of these, including the meter box, and change the face created. Now the other thing you'll need to do, if I go back to this document here, is the next instruction is to copy the text from the floor plan. And the text is the letter T, WM for washing machine, D for dryer, and AP for access point. You're also going to copy the actual access point itself, copy the outline from the floor plan and change it to halftone. So remember, this was actually a masking region, wasn't it? Now, the thing is that it says copy, and the thing is with Revit, what we can do, rather than sort of typing that text in again and recreating these objects in this new floor plan, what we can do is we can go back to the plan complete, and for instance, if I control click the text there, I can then go up to the clipboard panel and choose copy to clipboard, or do a control C, control key plus C. If I then return to the demolition plan, I can go back to the clipboard panel, click on the bottom of the paste button and say align to same place. Okay, aligned to the same place. So it copies it from one view to another in exactly the same location. So just going to save you a bit of time, that's all. Okay, so copy and paste, or copy and paste aligned to same place. And you can do that with the masking region and the text inside it. So control click, or perhaps click on the, just select the text first and then control click the masking region. So whichever way you do it, just select them both. Copy the clipboard. Alright, I'm just getting an error there, so I'll just perhaps do one at a time. Copy the clipboard. Paste, align to same place. Pick up the text, copy the clipboard, and then paste, back to demo, and paste, align to same place. Okay, just to complete this, can you select the masking region? Okay, select the masking region you've just copied, and right mouse on it, go to override graphics in view by element, and put a tick in halftone. Okay, so the outline becomes this grey colour or halftone. Okay, so we're going to just pop back to this sheet here. So, working down here, you'll see that we have to draw in some detail lines to indicate the roof cutout, and we also have to draw in another detail line style here to indicate the existing pergola that will be demolished. Now, both of these items are going to require a new line style. So this one is short red dashes, and this one is a line style that is basically similar to the roof outline, but it's red in colour. Again, to indicate that this is part of the roof covering that has been taken out or demolished. Now, neither of these line styles exist in the project, and in fact you're actually going to create them as custom line styles, which is something we haven't done before. But from time to time there is a need to create a new line style for a particular situation or application. So initially we're going to do these two, and then we're going to create a third one called thin lines red, so that we can actually draw in these posts. So let's start by creating this one here. Okay, this one called roof lines demo. Note the line pattern, centre. The colour is red, and the line weight is 2. So that's its line thickness. So to create new line styles, we do it from the Manage tab, Additional Settings, Line Styles. Now we have we've had a look at this before, and I think the only time that we've been here before is to actually change the colour of the roof separation lines. You remember doing that? So we changed them to a brown colour. So we can create new ones, which is using the new button down here. So you recall that this is basically a list of all the line styles that are, or patterns, and patterns that are currently used or loaded into the project. So to create a new one, we click the new button. We type in a name. Okay, roof lines demo. So once it's created, it then appears in the category list down here. The colour we said was red. The line weight we said was 2. And the line pattern we said was centre. So just be careful with the spelling of centre. It's spelled the correct way, which is the Australian way, which is RE. Okay, so again, centre, red, and 2. So while we're here, we'll just actually, once that's done, we'll actually click the new button again and create the next one. So the next one is this one here for the pergola lines. So note the line pattern. So it's one called overhead, same colour red and line weight 2. There may be quite a few line patterns to sort of scroll through. You can actually type in the name of the line pattern if you know what you're looking for. In this case, overhead. Click apply. And there's our two new line styles. While we're here in this dialogue, we may as well create a third one. Which is this one here. Okay, so this is our third one. Thin line's red, line pattern is solid, colour red, and the line projection weight is 1, so it's a little bit thinner. Okay, so there's our 3 view line styles. Alright, so just having a look at this A4 sheet again. So you're going to now draw in the detail lines themselves. So you're actually going to trace around the opening here with this line type. So these are detail lines, of course. And then once you've done that, you'll then draw in the lines here for the pergola. So note the width, 2820, and the length is 12,720. Okay, so just draw in that line work. Now you will have to show your roof. Okay, you will have to show your roof. So annotate detail lines over here in the line selector. We're looking for roof lines demo. To do it quickly, we can then use the rectangle draw tool and just add them in from here to here. Okay, once you've done that, you can then draw in the additional detail lines using the pergola lines demo line style. So they start here at the corner of the roof, bottom left-hand corner. Just draw upwards. At a certain point, just take it back and then connect to the roof eave line. Draw in those lines there. And what I suggest is perhaps just add a couple of aligned dimensions just to complete the sizing for the area for that pergola. So again, it was 2820 by 12,720. So once you've added those lines in, you can delete those dimensions. They're not required. And the next thing we'll do is have a look at adding in the posts themselves. Right, we're now going to add the posts along the edge of the pergola here. So, starting down here, using this particular line style, you're going to draw a 90 by 90 square and add diagonal lines to it. You're then going to select all of that line work and convert them to a group called 90 by 90 post. And using the array tool, produce 8 posts in total along that pergola line. So eight of these. So the last one finishes up here. So if you think you can do it, at least you're honest. So let's start by sort of just working in this area down here. So get in nice and close. Now these are going to be detail lines. They're going to be thin red or thin lines red. This is what the line style you created a little while ago. And you're going to draw the outline like so. And resize it. And then draw in the diagonals. So the line work that you've just drawn, of course, is all separate. Now we need to use the array tool to create 7 more of these things. So I guess it would make sense to sort of somehow join them together and incorporate them into, let's say, a group. And we can do that by simply, selecting the line work with a selection window. And don't forget, if you're doing this sort of work and you want to obviously use this again within the project, you can then convert them to a group, create a group. And it was the way that I created, this is the way I created the groups for the roof and the floor over the extension. Okay? So you can group items together. Now, if we click group, it's going to ask ask us for a group name. Now note that this is creating something called a detail group. Now, it's a detail group because it contains detail items like detail lines. The groups that I provided you with, the roof and the floor, are known as model groups. So there is a difference between the two groups.
Where's the groups up there on the top?
I'll just cancel that up here.
Yeah.
You have to have selected something first and then create group. So we're going to call this one 90 by 90 post. And click OK. So that's now a group. So it will have this this X and this Y arrow axis as part of it. So the thing is that see where the X and the Y axis intersect. You've got a little bubble here which can be moved. So that, wherever that's placed, becomes the group origin. Okay? Do you remember that you used a group origin when you placed the roof and the floor? And that's how I established the origin point for the model groups. So, you know, it's you can move that and place it somewhere appropriate because obviously when you're using or copying this group or adding more of these through the group, you then get a usable base point or origin for placement. Now, when you add groups to a project or create groups within a project, they appear here in the browser. So the groups branch, and you've got detail and model. So under detail, you've got the 90 by 90 post you've just created. Under model, you should have at least 3 groups there. Okay, these are the ones that you brought in for the roof and floor. Now, if you want to place or use one of these groups in your project, you can either do it here by right mouse clicking and saying create instance. Okay, so that there's one of these posts. So it actually then brings it out and adds it to the project, adds it to the view. Or you can do it through architecture. This is model groups here. Place model group. Now annotate. We've got, where are they? Components. Yeah, detail group here. Place a detail group. So there, that's another way of actually bringing out that group that we created. And there may be other groups in the project. So any other groups will appear in the type selector here. So they'll actually list here, and they'll also list down here. So as you're working, you know, in the project or any project, you might sort of just decide, okay, well, I've just drawn something up, something simple up, or created something. I'll create a group of that, and then I can use that somewhere else. So groups. So having created the first one, we're then going to use the array tool here. So the array tool, we haven't probably used this for quite a while. creates a linear or radial array of selected elements. So it's useful in this situation because we have to fit exactly 8 of these posts along the long side of our pergola. So select the tool, leave this group and associate ticked, pop in the number, the total number that you require, 8, and the option here, move to, we're going to change this to last. When we choose last, it means that we're actually effectively selecting the start and end point for our array. In other words, we're going to fit 8 items inside a given length. And the software will work out the spacing, so the spacing will be exact between each post. Okay, now it's prompting us to click to enter move start point. So you've just got to think about a point on the object as the start point, and that would be this one here, top left. Okay, so click that one, left click that one, roll out, pan down, move up to the other end of the pergola, and then click the end point. Okay, so click to enter move end point there. Okay. Now, I don't know if you remember much about the array tool, but once you've created the array, you can go back over and change the number of items contained in the array through this little setting here. Now that's because we've actually chosen to group and associate these items. So if I wanted 16 there, it then changes that to 16 of equal spacing. Okay, if I want 2, I'll just get 1 at each end. Okay. So yeah, there's many situations where you can use the array tool to good effect. So as far as the demolition plan is concerned, that's all of the additional work that we have to do with the visibility of objects and the production or creation of line styles and adding detail lines. If you move back to, or go back to learn, to part 2, scroll down to example sheets and just open up the A103 demolition plan. All that's left to do essentially is to add this text. Exactly as it is. The text is to be added, the text is standard 2mm, and all text will be left aligned. So the important thing is to actually line it up on the left-hand side here. For reasons including, I guess, presentation. Just make sure that the leader arrows are touching the items or indicating the parts of the demolition plan that they're meant to. Don't forget this one inside here. and you can then add the north symbol as well. Okay. Now, just a tip here, and you can do this is optional. From my PDF sheet here, if you highlight the text there, you can do a Control C, Control key plus C, which is a copy. And then start your leader text. And once you've clicked to place your leader arrow, you can do a Control V, and it'll actually paste the text in without you having to type it. Alright, saves a bit of time, that's all. Once the text is there, you'll just need to obviously pull it out, perhaps. Oh no, that's okay. That's probably okay as it is. So again, it'll just save you a bit of time. So I'll let you just work away and put all those notes in, and the north symbol. Alright, so I think most of you by now have put in your notes. I guess I'm thinking that this note at the very bottom here, I would prefer if that one was actually brought into line with these other ones on the left-hand side, and just adjust the leader arrow so it's horizontal and vertical, and just with your arrows, just if you can just keep the first part of the arrow horizontal where possible. So just the first part. It just visually makes those notes look a little bit better. I guess the thing is that I have said previously with notes that or leader notes, to try and keep the first part of the arrow horizontal and the second part vertical. But in this case, it's given that what we're trying to note, it's a little bit difficult to use that principle. So obviously the second part of the leader will be on some sort of angle, but the first part I'd like you to keep horizontal where you can. So once you've added your notes, you'll then of course go to annotate, symbol, and just add in your north symbol. And what you'll then do is, as we did with the floor plan, zoom out so you can see your elevation markers. Turn on your crop and make sure that you turn on your crop region and make sure that crop view is ticked as well. These two are ticked initially. The crop view will stay ticked, but the crop region will be unticked once you have adjusted your crop region inwards. Okay, something like that. So once you've done that, once you've brought your crop in, turn your crop off, keep the view cropped. So you shouldn't be able to see the elevation markers. Having done that, or those two things, demolition plan is now ready for a sheet. Okay, so that view is now complete. All right, so we'll next move on to the site plan. So if you can, in your browser, if you can just go down to site, which is under floor plans, open up that view. Now, this is what we're starting with the site plan. If we have a look at, or go back to learn, to part 2. So the site plan itself is A102. This is the first one in the example sheet list. So from what we're starting with to what we were going to end up with is that. So that's the completed site plan. Now, I guess fortunately for us, the building does face north, and once we get set up, we're actually going to have a look at drawing in these boundary lines based on the north pointing straight up. So the angles here, the 5 degrees, the 90 degrees, the 183 degrees and so forth are all based on north being vertical. Has anyone had any experience with site plans before and measuring angles using degrees, minutes and seconds? Me neither. Just kidding.
Blindly with a blind.
Just kidding. Okay, I'll tell you what I know. Okay. All right, we'll get to that shortly, but that's what we're about to produce. Okay. So our site plan is going to be at a scale of 1:200. So essentially that's one of the first things we do, and that's the annotation scale down here. So change to 1:200. And I don't know if you picked up on that, but if I change that back to 1:100, see the section lines here? They automatically disappear when we change the scale. Okay, so that's, I won't go into why that happens, but it's just an automatic sort of function within Revit. The elevation markers, we're not going to, we can't eliminate those by, well, we will ultimately crop the view and adjust the crop region, which we'll perhaps do now. We'll actually click crop view and we'll actually click crop region. We should have enough room within the current crop region, but I think what we'll do is we'll just actually, in this case, we'll just draw it out a little bit, give us a little bit more room. And what we're going to do now is we're going to turn off the elevation markers through visibility graphics. So we're going to turn these off through their own category. And the best way to do that is, if I was to say to you, could you open up the visibility graphics dialog? Could you find it and open it?
VG.
VG. I'm impressed. So VG is the shortcut for this dialogue. I think also VV. To find it, of course, it's on the View tab, and it's here. Okay. Now, the elevation markers are considered annotation, so they come under annotation categories. And they'll be in the E section. See here, E for elevations. So we untick elevations. And click OK. So the other thing that we need to do from a display point of view is change the phase filter. But what do we change it to? Any ideas?
Complete.
Show complete. Yeah. So ultimately, I guess with probably, with the exception of the demolition plan, all other views will be show complete. Now, I would like you also to hide gutters, fascias, and eave linings. So they need to be hidden by category. So again, I find it easier to actually do it through visibility graphics. They are considered model categories and they are part of the roof. So they're going to be here. We expand the roof category, they're here. So it's just a matter of actually unticking them. Okay, so fascias, gutters, and roof soffits. Okay, so we've got our building there, sitting on our site or in our site plan. So as I say, one of the first things we're going to do is actually draw in something called a boundary line or a property line, obviously to indicate the four boundaries of the property itself. Now, I'll just show you an actual boundary survey. Did anyone seen one of these before? If you've ever had one done, this is my property. I had it produced last year for the main reason because I was actually replacing this entire fence through here and part of this fence through here. And I didn't want to get it wrong. You've all heard of the Lands Title Office. Do you know why it exists? The sole reason it exists? Fence disputes. Fence disputes. Okay. So I mean, if I guess if you are replacing fences on your property or a property, and I guess the thing is that with any new subdivisions, of course, these things are produced, these boundary surveys, to determine the exact location of fencing, for instance.
Which can cause problems.
Sorry?
Which can cause problems.
Yes.
A friend down in Galway, they had a property and the people next door built and, you know, did this huge thing. I had actually found out that all the fences were wrong. They were wrong the whole way down the street, so
Yes.
they had to move
Yeah.
over their shed,
Yeah, compounding, yeah.
which had been there for 50 plus years.
Yeah, I think in fact, you see the brick garage here. This is an old brick garage that I had. You can see the edge of the brick garage there, and that's where the fence should be. And that's where the fence was, on the boundary of that brick garage. So we're talking about, what, 700 mil? But my garage was over into the neighbour's property. The thing is, it's now been demolished, so it's not an issue. But yeah, that's the sort of thing you can pick up on. You know, this is an older area. This is Glengarry, yeah. So back in the day, they got it wrong. So, but I guess the reason I'm showing you this is that with your boundary survey, the direction of north is always indicated as pointing straight up, and any of your boundary or property lines, any of the angles are measured from north, which is 0 degrees. So this angle, this fence along here, this boundary along here is 85 degrees, essentially as measured from the north reference, which is 0. So you've got 85 degrees clockwise. Okay, so that's how we sort of determine our angles. And it's the same with Revit. Now, so you've got 85 degrees, you've got 3 minutes, and you've got 20 seconds. And that's the way angles are measured in surveying. Degrees, minutes, and seconds. Okay. So there being 60 seconds in a minute and 60 minutes in a degree. So we're going to be working with degrees, minutes and seconds when we actually draw up our boundary outline. All good? So I guess the thing is that in our case, it's fortunate for us that our boundary or our property set out is, it's not completely rectangular, but in relation to, I guess, north or north-south, our boundaries are align north-south, and these longer ones align west and east, more or less. So that's a recent boundary survey. Okay. So with anything that relates to the site itself in Revit, we're actually going to be working on a new tab called Massing and Site up here. Through the massing and site, we can add things like topographic surfaces. We can put in site components such as trees and things called property lines. Now, the software refers to a boundary line as a property line, and that's what we're going to use to draw our boundaries. Now, before we do that, I'll need you to make a slight adjustment, which is down here. See this arrow here? Site settings. Click the arrow, and under site settings, I'll get you to go down to property data and just change the angle display to degrees only.
Where was the site setting?
Sorry, yeah.
Okay, so we're here on Massington site. Just next to model site, there's a little arrow there. The people that wrote the software tried to get this arrow as small as possible, so you'd miss it. Just kidding. Yeah, the site settings and angle display down here, change that to degrees. Note the units, degrees, minutes and seconds. I mean, that could be changed to decimal degrees, but we'll leave it as it is. And just click OK. Now, when you click property line, you can actually generate these property lines by one of two methods. You can create them by entering distances and bearings. So, in other words, length and angle, or just sketch them. Now, if I choose the first one, it gives me a table called property lines. Now, I said earlier that our property lines were measured from north pointing straight up, and that being 0 degrees. So in Revit projects, north is always assumed to be pointing straight up, and it's also known as project north. Now, if I want to draw a property line, the first one, if I wanted to perhaps start in the lower right hand corner and draw a property line to the left at a length of let's say 20 metres. So I pop in the distance there at 20 metres, and the bearing as measured from project north would be, any ideas?
You go into the left.
It says 270.
Yeah, so would it be 270?
360. Go around, take off 90.
Yeah, so the other factor is that we're measuring angles clockwise from project north. So if I go with 270 and click OK, yeah, so you see that's probably longer than 270, but can you see that where it's attached to my crosshair, it's actually been produced to the left, so that's 270 degrees. I'll just escape on that one, and I'll do that again. So that's 20 metres presumably. So if I drop that one there, it will give me a warning to say that the lines do not form a closed loop. That's fine. But if I click, once I produce the first one, if I then click Edit Table, I can then go back in, and if let's say I make that one 40, and click OK. So it just makes that one twice as long. I'll just move that one up to there. I'll select that one again, the first one and click Edit Table. Now, if I wanted to actually continue from the left-hand side of this first one and draw a property line vertically at 20 metres, I would then click Insert here, add a new line and put in 20 metres, and then pop in the angle there, which would be
Zero.
0. Okay, so that takes it up there. Then if I click Edit Table and then I go back the way I came, what angle would that be?
90.
90? Yep. And then Edit Table once more. Now I could insert the last line to complete the enclosure, which would be 20 metres at 180, or I can actually click Add Line to Close, and it'll do it for me. So that's my outline. Now, the distances and bearings that we are going to use are slightly different to that. So we're going to, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to, if you've drawn that one just then, that's fine. You can leave it there and we can actually edit the table and we can actually key in the correct distances and bearings and then effectively change the shape of this outline. Now we're out of time today, and we'll leave that for our next session. All right. So that's a very sort of quick introduction to, I guess, property lines, boundary lines, and I guess the way that we input them into a Revit model. Now the thing is that with your property lines, what you can do, for instance, is actually create them by sketching. So you don't have to use the first method. You could actually use the second method, and using one of your draw tools here, you can actually draw them as single lines.
You wouldn't get the right angle, would it?
No, it's a lot more difficult, of course, because you've got to draw them, and then you've actually got to perhaps put an angular dimension on. Probably best to complete that first. I'll just take that. It's disappeared because my crop section's over there. So once you've done that, you then have to put an angle on them. And do it that way. But yes, there is a bit more fiddling around with them in that respect. But if you've drawn this out as a sketch and you've got it all set up, you can potentially then click Edit Table and convert your sketch lines to, or add a table to them. Okay, so that then tells you exactly what you've just drawn in degrees, minutes and seconds. So there you go. All right, so we'll leave our project at this point. Bring that one in. So yes, so in our next session, we'll have a look at setting that up correctly for the project, and then we'll do our setback measurements, and then go from there. So thanks everyone. We'll see you next session.